I have the honor today to introduce Mother Seraphina Marie. Mother Seraphina Marie of the Blessed Trinity Quinlan is a impactful community volunteer and servant and foundress of the Franciscan Daughters of Mary. And it's my honor today to introduce Mother Seraphina Marie. Mother?
Anyway, thank you. So it's kind of an interesting story because the sisters and I have been in Kentucky for about 20 years now. And when we came to Kentucky, we had the idea that we were going to open up a pregnancy care center. You know, we saw our vow to uphold the dignity of every human person from the moment of conception to after death. It's a very pro-life vow, which, though, is our first apostolate. I guess it's the best known secret, is to pray for priests. You see, because the priests are the fathers of our families, of our church family. You know, it's the church that moves history. It's the Catholic Church that moves history. When the church is right, society's right. But in order to have a healthy family, you have to have good fathers and good mothers. Well, we try to be good mothers, but we have to pray for our fathers. So because if you have good fathers who love God and good mothers who love God, you will have healthy children who also love God. So our family of the church is of primary importance. Because without the church, there's nothing. The church reminds us that we're only here temporarily. Father Hallowell has an amazing story. We love Father Hallowell. He actually came to speak at our boot camp that Mike mentioned. And Father Jonathan Myers was one of our favorites. He's at every Mary's Pro-Life boot camp. We've been doing it for 5 years, and he's been at every one. But we have to pray for our priests, because it's hard. Father Hallowell mentioned, the devil comes after you. When you try to do something holy, and boy, does he come after you when you try to do something holy. And he comes after the priests like there's nobody's business, which is why the priest scandal got so crazy. Because the devil he gets in there with just these little ideas. Oh, you're nobody. Nobody loves you. Isn't that true? You're going to be nothing. Oh, your priesthood means nothing. You're not doing anything good. Nobody's even listening to you, right? But it's the same for us. It's the same for everyone. The most important thing we've found out is to help each person understand how much dignity they have, each one of you. Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Now, when God knows you, that means like complete knowledge, not just, hi, like, oh, hello, you're your sister Therese, hi. It's not that kind of knowledge. It's like he knows everything about you. And he follows that up with saying, before one of your days began, I dedicated you a prophet to the nation. He gave Jeremiah every single gift that he ever had. And he gave me every gift. He knew I was going to be a woman. He knew I was going to be bold. And someone who knew how to speak her mind. But he gave you every gift that you have. He also gave me my crosses and the things that I'm not good at. I don't have really good recall about names. And I'm so enamored by one of our sisters in the convent because she remembers everybody's name. And then another sister, she remembers entire conversations. She'll be verbatim, be able to, and it doesn't even have to be right away. It could be 2 weeks or a month or a year later, and she'll remember verbatim what everybody said. That is an amazing gift from God. I'll never have that gift because that was not my gift. You see, it was her gift. And even my little brother, Sean, I'm the oldest of 6, and he's the youngest, he has Down syndrome. And God made him that way because he knew that having Down syndrome is what would make him perfectly his own. He made him perfect, even in our disabilities. And it's a beautiful thing because, without my brother Sean, I would not be a sister today. I certainly wouldn't be pro-life. You see, I grew up in a Catholic household. But, when we went to Sunday Mass, we prayed grace. But that's really the only family prayer we ever prayed. And so, we had holidays and things like that. I knew that there was a rosary, and it was Our Fathers and Hail Marys. I had no idea it was meditations on the mysteries of life, death, and resurrection of Christ. And so when I got older, I got crazy, and did my own thing, and I was not pro-life. I was one of these ones that you see, one of these liberal ones that you see out there. And then my life was just a mess. And I knew that I had a little bit of peace when I came to church on Sundays, so I said, I'm just going to go to church again. Well, I found out it's a place you can sing, and I spent some time in New York trying to be a singer. So I said, this is a great place to keep up my voice, So I started singing every Sunday, and then I got more involved in my church, and then I got involved in ministries, and I was at a church event, and my friend was telling me about how my brother Sean came to youth group. And I said, he's the heart and soul of our family. He really taught us what love was about. He brought our family together when we were on the outs. And she said, people really need to hear that. Would you be willing to tell people? And I said, absolutely. She goes, good, we're going to have a pro-life prayer vigil in 2 weeks. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not pro-life. What is this? But I gave my word, and I'm a woman of my word. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to find out what this pro-life thing is about. So I did a research, but didn't turn my heart, And the morning of the prayer vigil, we started out at Mass, and around the block from the church was this abortuary. And we prayed, praying the rosary. And people got up to speak. There were some priests and some Protestant pastors, and then it was my turn. And I only knew how I was going to start. I had no clue what I was going to say. I just said, I'm just here to tell you about somebody who's special to me. And it was like St. Paul having the scales fall from your eyes. It was amazing. For the first time in my life, I realized the excuse people give to keep abortion legal is because they might be like my brother. And I was like, what? That's like giving away the love of God himself. How could they do that? And I became incensed because I knew I had been lied to all my life. In my Catholic high school, we had Planned Parenthood come give us a presentation. Planned Parenthood that was across diagonal from our church. There's a Planned Parenthood office. So I didn't know, but at that moment, I knew I had to do something about it because I'm also a woman of conviction. So I said, I have to do something so people can know the right thing, that they can know that there's dignity in the life and that they shouldn't be doing this to the kids, And so I did a lot. I got very active in the pro-life movement. And in the church. And that's really kind of where my vocation came from. Because of my activity in the church and teaching kids about the truth. And I just, I fell in love with Jesus. See, every relationship or every vocation to the religious life, and I would also say probably the priesthood, is about falling in love. It's about a relationship. Because I fell head over heels in love with Jesus. I couldn't get enough of him. I went to a life-changing moment. I went to confession for the first time in I don't even remember how long. And I had been doing the wrong thing and feeling like, I did it again. It's like, I did it again. It's like, I'm going to go prove to myself and my God how sorry I am. I'm going to go tell a priest. And it's only because that Sunday, a newly ordained priest who was on fire for the faith was telling us about the nuts and bolts of the faith. And he talked about confession and why it was important. And he gave out examinations of conscience after Mass. And I put it in my purse and kind of put it away, But it was the one thing. It was like, okay. So I had to go and prove to myself and my God how serious I was about how sorry I am. And I went to confession. But it was a life-changing moment. So I went into the confessional, and I unburdened myself. I told him everything. And he said, "You just made my confession." I said, "Oh, what's that about?" And he said, "You're the prodigal son. Do you know what readings we're doing tomorrow at Mass?" I said, "Well, no." He says, "It's the prodigal son. You're the prodigal son." I said, "Oh, that's nice." So he gave me penance and an absolution. And as I'm walking out of the confessional, okay, I opened the door, and it was like, I don't know. It was almost probably like what the apostles experienced at Pentecost, because I was elated. Never like this before. I just was like on fire for God and for things that are holy. And like, I had a big smile on my face, probably for 6 months. Do you ever smile so much like your cheeks hurt? Well, that's what it was like, okay? And I was so filled with joy, I didn't even know what to do with it. And so I got very active in my church, and before you know it, I'm going to Mass every day, Eucharistic Holy Hour every day. A priest taught me how to pray, morning and evening prayer, so I'm doing that every day. And 7 different ministries in my church. 3 of them I started, very active in the pro-life movement. And one day I'm at my daytime job, because I still, had to support myself. I'm at my daytime job. And my employer was Catholic. And she had a picture of the bust of Our Lady of Guadalupe in the front counter, behind the front counter. And I was just walking by, and I just happened to glance at Our Lady of Guadalupe, and all of a sudden, it wasn't enough. I had to give my whole life to Jesus. I had fallen in love. And so I knew, and from that moment to the moment I, was wearing a habit, was only 3 months. It would have been sooner, except that we were coming up on the holidays, and I didn't want to, put my parents through that kind of emotional trauma. So I waited until after the holidays to tell them, we're all at dinner together. The big part of the whole family was there. And I said, well, I just want to let you know I'm going to be a religious sister. And they were like, oh, we thought so. I was like, what? What do you mean? But it all starts with knowing who you are. I knew who I was, and I was beloved by God. So many people don't know. The people we see at our mission, they don't know how beloved they are. They don't know that God knew, like, how many hairs you were going to have on your head and how many hairs you're going to have on your head. Big difference, though. But God, somebody asked me that the other day. He says, well, we're made in the image and likeness of God. I don't think you look anything like me. And I said, yes, but you have 2 eyes, right? You have a nose, right? You have a mouth, you can talk. You have arms. Do you have a heart? And he says, yeah, well, did he do this? Because he's balding, right? And I said, he's counted every one. Anyway. Sorry if I embarrassed you. But anyway, but they need to know, and that's really the basis of what the ministry is. We do it at the Rose Garden Mission in Covington. And that's also what we insist on our volunteers when they come. We'll give them a trial. Anybody who is, if they're Catholic and they go to a Catholic church, they want to come and volunteer, you come on and we'll give you a shot. I've only had to disinvite like 3 people that came to volunteer. And we have literally hundreds of volunteers, because we knew that this was going to be something that was going to be by God and for God. We only started out as a Catholic pregnancy center. We were going to be working with moms and babies, right? Well, the day 1, people started sending food. And I was like, oh, well, that's nice. The sisters get hungry. But it was more than we could eat, so we gave it out. And then it kept coming in greater abundance, so we kept giving it out. And it kept coming, and I was like, okay, Lord, you're obviously doing something here. If you keep sending us food, we'll keep giving it out. And it just kept coming. We started getting truckloads of food. And we tried to give it out the same day. As fast as it came in, we're trying to give it out. And we'll just give it out to anybody who walks in the door. Because, I mean, if you have the courage to walk into a place and say, hi, I'm hungry, can I eat? I'm going to give you something. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care what you're wearing. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter if you have a roof on your head or not. If any one of you came in and said, hi, can I have some food? I'd give it to you. So as fast as it came in, we tried to get rid of it. And we kept going on this way. But the Lord kept sending food in greater abundance and different things. And before you know it, well, it's up now, 20 years later, we give out like 5 grocery bags of food every day. And it's a little bit of this, like we make sure we have like diversity. For instance, a protein bag and a vegetable bag and a bread bag and a sweet bag and a treat bag. It's like we want to give them a little bit of everything. And whatever's come in, that's what goes out. And so in the same way, the volunteers, it's, Lord, we need help. And he started sending help. And he helped us to understand that like they have to come with the right heart. Is not to make a paycheck. Because if you're coming just as a job, if it's just a job for you, you're not going to treat my people right. You're not going to treat my children right. My children are the ones that we see every day. So you have to come free with the love of God. And you have to be able to communicate the love of God to these people. We'll give you some chances, because nobody's perfect. But if someone persists in being unkind, then we disinvite them. And I only had to do that 3 times in 20 years. That's not too bad. So Mike and Nick Winnicky over here, they come every week. I don't know, 2, 3, or 4 times a week. They're at the mission. I see them all the time. And both of them now are on the the board of the Friends of the Rose Garden. But everything that we get is donated. And if it's, we do a lot of baby stuff. So we do pregnancy tests, and we do counseling to women on making good choices in their pregnancy. But in their last month of pregnancy, they get a basket that we call the new baby welcome basket. It's everything mom needs when the baby first comes home. And so she doesn't have to worry about like, where am I going to get all this stuff, or I can't afford a baby, so she'd be tempted to get rid of the baby, We're going to help you, and we'll stay with you. So every once a week you can come in and get diapers. Twice a month you can come in and get clothes. Every day we're open, you can come in and get food. And so that's kind of what we've been doing. And we've had moms. Sister was just talking to me this morning about a mom that she saw, and she said, you're the sisters that helped my daughter with her granddaughter. And you know what? She's an adult now, And you guys were great. You gave her everything she needed. She never saw her daughter as a burden. Isn't that beautiful? So we get to see the impact that makes. And really the most important thing we do is that we love these people. And they know that they're loved. Sister and I were just watching some of the old videos that we had made about the mission years ago. And this one was made about 15 years ago. And one lady was on there, yes, I come in here a lot and you give me what I need. But more than that, you help me to understand that you care for me. I know that this is a safe place I can come to. And one of our neighbors who used to come all the time, and we helped her with her son and all this, she told me about 6 years ago she gave up drugs. She was a drug addict for many, many years, an alcoholic, and she gave them all up. And I said, well, what made you give them up? She said, well, you did. I said, well, okay. She says, well, you know what? I came to understand that you care about me. And I thought that if you cared about me, maybe I should care about me. So I gave up the drugs. A year and a half ago, she was baptized and brought into the church. And she loves it. She loves it. And so, you never know the impact that you're going to have on anybody just by treating them with dignity. Because that's what I encourage you to do. But, the vocations are born because of your prayers and your witness to the importance of building up the family of the church. It's of primary importance. So I commend you, Serrans, for praying for priests and religious life. I just love that. I love that. And it's our prayers that will get us through all these hard times, right? And you may not know the fruit of your prayers, but know that your prayers are being answered. You may not see it in this life, but you'll know eventually, because none of us gets out of here alive, right? Like Father Hollowell had this amazing healing, but one day he's going to be united with God, right? There's another lady, one of the people who drops stuff off and helps us like get rid of our pallets, because food comes in on pallets, and he carries out the pallets. Well, his wife has been sick for a long time, and we prayed with her a couple of years ago, and she had a healing. Well, then it came back with a vengeance, and before she even knew what happened, she had stage 4, it had metastasized, and it didn't look good. So we visited her in the hospital, and I said to her, do you want to be baptized? She said, yes. So we were able to baptize her. 2 weeks later, she died. And her husband was just out of his mind about losing her. But I said to him, when she died, the angels came for her and brought her into the presence of the Father. And the Father put his arms around her and said, welcome home. Because she's baptized. He says, welcome home. So this is the power, we have in helping other people understand this life is temporary. You got to work on what's eternal. But through your prayers and your witness, I commend you, and I just encourage you to please more prayer, more witness, and just helping other people know how wonderful they are, building them up in the Spirit. And if you don't know how wonderful you are, read Jeremiah. Because he tells it, or even read Genesis, you were made in my image because you're my son and you're my daughter. So God bless you, and you will be in my prayers. Please pray for the sisters. Thank you.